Hey guys, how's it going? East Philly here with a Firearms Friday. Today we're going to be going over optics. Now there are many type of optics that you can choose from if you decide to get into the shooting world, ranging from optics that go in rifles like you normally see. You can buy optics that are specific for different types of rifles. You can buy old types of optics for clone builds of old types of shooting or guns, whatever you want to do. You can even buy optics for pistols now other than regular iron sights. So we're going to go over a few that you might see when you're shopping around. Unfortunately, I don't have every type. That would just be a little too expensive. But there are many types. I'm going to go over a brief overview of each of them before we get started. So the first type of optic we're going to talk about is the iron sights. Brief overview. It's usually some type of peephole or post in the back with a post in the front. And you're either going to line that post up in the pole or line it up here, correct for elevation, windage, or whatever you need. You line it up, you put it on your target, and you shoot. What you see is a basic red dot. What a basic red dot is usually a piece of glass, usually in a tube shape. Sometimes you'll see them in square shapes, with just a dot projected onto the glass. You can usually change the brightness of the illumination of the dot with different turrets. You can change where the dot is in the glass. If it's not directly centered on your target, you change the elevation or the windage to get it centered. There's a few different types of technical red dots. The plain red dot that I just explained. You have prism sights that use a different type of glass and usually have an etched reticle. What that means is in the glass they etched the actual reticle. A reticle is the shape or shapes you might see to put on your target, and that's how you know you're aiming in the right spot. When you have etched reticles, usually there's still some type of illumination in the red dot world because it is a red dot. You can turn the illumination up or down. Sometimes you can change the colors. Sometimes they have different types of dots. Sometimes they're not dots, but we'll go over that a little bit further later. Next up is a magnified red dot. It's pretty much just like a regular red dot, except that the glass is magnified. Usually it comes in a 3 to 4x magnification, meaning when you're looking at your target, it's zoomed into you a bit so you have a better idea of where you're hitting. It's a little bit more precise, and depending on the type of shooting you're doing, it could be a lot better for you. Usually fixed magnification dots are etched reticles. They have the reticle in the glass and you can illuminate it with a dial. Going off of the fixed red dot, we usually have fixed power scopes. Fixed power scopes generally don't have illumination to them. They're usually just a base crosshair. They might have a different type of crosshair than a regular T that you might be used to. It might be a line facing up with a, they call a chevron on top. You put that right at where you're aiming at and you shoot and it's good. They usually have the typical scope body though, with an eye lens and an objective lens. And depending on the power of the scope, usually the objective lens might be a little bit bigger to allow more light into it so that you have a clearer picture. Stepping up from that, you have your variable power optics. They usually can range pretty long ranges. I have a 1 to 4, I have a 1 to 6, I have a 2.5 to 10, a 3 to 9. When you go up in price for them and the quality, it changes the multiplication of the base. So my 2.5 to 10 is a multiplier of 4, because if you times 2.5 by 4 you get 10. My 3 to 9 is a multiplication of 3. So you take 3, multiply it by 3, you get 9. If the 2.5 was 3 multiplication, it would be 7.5. So the higher you go in quality, usually the bigger range you can get. You see some that are 20 power, 50 power, 20 power to 60 power. They all kind of change and they all depend on the type of shooting you're doing. Now there's so many types of variable power optics out there. I can't really talk about all of them. I've only have 3 of them. I've only used maybe 6 altogether, and they're all pretty different. Some are just a basic crosshair. Some are horseshoe on the top with a post in the bottom. It'll have notches called a bullet drop compensator. So you put those notches up and down depending on how far you're shooting, and it kind of gives you a better idea. Some of them are crosshair with notches on all the posts, and there's even more than that it's kind of hard to explain without showing you. When you get into variable power optics, you also see first focal plane and second focal plane. First focal plane gives you your crosshair, and as you zoom in on your target, the crosshair gets bigger or smaller. The closer you zoom towards you, the smaller it is. The further you zoom out away from you, the larger it gets. This is good for very precise shooting, especially when you have bullet drop compensators or you're getting those notches in there on the regular crosshair. We'll talk about why later, and probably in a different video, but I just want to teach you a little bit of the basics for what I might be saying. When you have a second focal plane, your crosshair stays the same size as you zoom in and out. What does get bigger is your target. So as you zoom in on a target, the target gets bigger and bigger and bigger. That crosshair hits the chest here. So now you're seeing the chest with that same crosshair. When you zoom out, the crosshair is the same, but now you're seeing the crosshair in a whole torso. There's pros and cons to it. Again, I'll probably go over those when I do more in-depth video of each scope, but let's look at some of the things we have. So this is iron sights. This is pretty much the basic for any rifle. Iron sights come in a bunch of different variations. This is a peephole iron sight with an AR style front sight post. Iron sights come in many forms as well. I'm actually trying to find a carry handle iron sight like you would have seen on the old style ARs with the Vietnam era and all that. This iron sights have a flip down rear sight called a backup iron sight. They are not fixed, they are flip up. And a fixed front sight post that is also a gas block. Iron sights are really good, and when you learn how to shoot with iron sights, you actually kind of learn a lot about guns in general and how they work. There's better iron sights than this. This is polymer. You can get fixed ones that are in metal. You can get flip-up ones in metal. On my AR-10, I actually have Magpul flip-up sights that work a little differently. They actually have this smaller peephole like you see here, and then you can flip that out of the way, and it's a bigger peephole used for like night shooting. This is more oriented for precision shooting. And this one was made by Ruger for the Ruger AR-556 that I have. Like I said, iron sights are great, and learning how to shoot with irons is great. It really teaches you the fundamentals of shooting other than having a scope. This one here is the Vortex Spitfire 2. This is just a plain old red dot, and what that is a piece of glass with a dot illuminated onto the glass through some type of device inside. I don't know a lot about the mechanical workings or electronical workings of scopes. This one, like I said, is just a plain red dot. I can change the intensity of the brightness up and down, which kind of makes it look more pinpoint and not, but it really doesn't change the size too much. You can turn it from red to green and back to red and on and off. Like I said, this is a Vortex Spitfire 2. I don't think it says that there. It says it there, but you might not be able to see it too well. This is a great entry-level red dot optic. It'll just work. And Vortex has a great warranty. If it doesn't, it's 1X, which means that whatever you're looking at through here is going to be the same magnification as your normal eye. So just like the prism scope, this kind of gives a good peripheral vision if you keep both eyes open when you're using it. There are drawbacks to this. If the battery dies, you don't have an optic. But that's what backup iron sights are for. If I put this on my Ruger, I could actually put the dot right on top of the notch on the front sight post, and it should be perfect zero, at least to what my iron sights are, and I could flip up that back iron sight and you'd be able to see right through here and see with the iron sights if this goes down. Some of the other types of optics, it's hard to do that because they have an actual etch reticle, or the level of the mount is higher or lower. So you kind of got to figure if that's what you want. But straight up red dots are always good options. There are many options that are great prices now. You can get them from all different places, different size dots, different configurations of dots. You can have circles around a center dot. You can have a whole bunch of different things. Next up on our optic tour is the Vortex Spitfire. This is a 1x. It's considered a red dot. It's an etched reticle prism sight. What that means is instead of just having a piece of glass with an image projected on it, the reticle is actually etched into the glass so that it doesn't need any illumination for you to see it. But it does have an illumination dial. I can go to red. And this is probably the best representation of it. That's usually where I try to go to if I'm flicking it on real quick. But you can also do green. Depending on your background, one can be better than the other. This one has, I believe it's a 60 MOA big circle. I'm not too sure the smaller circle, and you probably can't see it, but really tiny in the center of that smaller circle is a regular dot. And that's going to be your pinpoint accuracy. This is pretty much made, you put the circle on the target and you shoot anywhere from usually 1 to 100 yards. You're going to hit as long as you have that smaller circle dead center in the target. The bigger circle is going to cover everything. And if I kind of go out of view, you can kind of see the dot better. I don't know if don't know if you're going to be able to see the actual center dot, but you might see the circles a bit better. There you go. So this is the Spitfire. It has these MOA adjustments, unlike the other ones that have full-on turrets. It doesn't feel like working for me. That you could change. This one, you take the cap off and it's just a little coin slot turret, so you can't adjust it by finger. It does have little notches so you can kind of guess where you are. There's a little line there. And what you do is you take the notch on the cap, or you could take the edge of a bullet at the bottom, or you take a quarter or a screwdriver, put it in there, and you might be able to hear that little bit of clicking. It's not zeroed in, so I don't really care about moving it around too much, but it's a nice light little scope. It mounts on with this little thumb screw. I believe you can buy a different base for it for quick release if you really want. It has its focus adjuster, so you get that etched reticle really nice and focused for your eye, and the nice illumination dial. Again, that's the Vortex Spitfire. You see there, maybe it says 1x. That's just the magnification. I like it. It's very fast acquisition when I'm pulling it up to a target. I just put it onto the pistol because I didn't like how it was on the sub 2000, even though it is like a small scope. And it's really nice, actually. I really like the prism idea. The only problem right now that I'm seeing is that it's more like a 0.9 or a 0.8x. It seems a little zoomed out when I look through it. It's not too bad. It might actually be zoomed in a little bit, like a 1.1x, and it's just kind of messing with my eye a little bit for like very precise shooting. I'd say it looks zoomed out, actually. Like, I see images look further away than they should be. It's not a huge deal. Just when you have stuff like this, you really want to keep both eyes open so you see your peripheral vision with the left eye. If you're right eye dominant, you're looking through this with the right eye. Your left eye is kind of still seeing everything around you, and that little bit of image difference can really actually screw you up. So it's something to think about if you're looking into it, but I really do like it for fast target acquisition, and it's quick, it's nice, and it's light. This scope is a Simmons 3 to 9 by 40. It is typically what you would see with a hunting scope. It has larger bars in the vertical and horizontal position, and then thinner bars as you get to the center for a more pinpoint accuracy on what you're aiming at. It has this focus ring in the back, kind of to focus your eye a bit better, and then up front, or not up front, but you have your magnification dial. So as you see, it's zooming in and in. You might not be able to see it too well because I'm not actually pointing at anything. Let's see if I can point. I don't actually have the barrel on this 1022 right now, so I'm not actually pointing the barrel at anything, just the actual body. See if there we go. And this scope is very finicky when it comes to eye relief. So it zoomed out, zoomed in. Again, this is a the second focal plane. That means the reticle stays the same size as your target gets bigger or smaller, and it's just pretty basic. That's why I have it on the Ruger 1022 takedown. You can see it just used standard two-piece ring. It's a pretty nice optic. It's pretty light. I don't think I'd put it on any type of, should hit the fan rifle. They can't even get their lettering, the stickers. It's not even etched in like it should be, and they're all over the place. It's a good $50 to $70 scope for something like a 22 rifle. Yeah, you don't really have to worry about it or anything. You just kind of put it on there, aim and shoot with the small recoil of the 22 rifle. It shouldn't be a problem. Again, like I liked before, it has cap turrets that you can actually adjust by your fingers instead of needing a tool or the case of a bullet, which I like very much when you actually had the finger adjustments. And it's a nice basic scope for this gun. I'm probably going to change it out maybe to my Bushnell 1-4 scope, but I do like the 3 to 9 range on this for the 22 rifle. 22 I really only shoot at the 50 yards, and that 9 power kind of gets cloudy, so I usually just go up to 5 or 6, and that gets me all I need. So that's why I'm thinking of maybe going to the Bushnell. It's a little bit, it's only a 1-4, but that 4 actually be more than enough. But we'll see when I do my different testing with it. This is the Vortex Strikefire 1-6 by 24. What that means is it should give a true 1 power, like I'm looking through a window at the low end of the magnification. Again, I'm sorry for moving around a bit. It's kind of hard to look through. So you see here is 6x zoomed in. Here is 1x zoomed all the way out, and you can actually see the Picatinny rail right in front of it. This reticle is a little different. It's more like a competition type of reticle. Let's see if I can get a little bit clearer. Get it right onto solid object. Again, this is second focal plane. It is illuminated. And just like the other reticle, it does have the side and bottom turret, so for faster target acquisition. I like this scope on my AR because of the type of reticle that it is. You can see a big horseshoe on the top. You just put that on your target if it's anywhere between pretty much 100 to 200 yards. And you should hit your target as long as your trigger pull is good and you're actually on target. In the horseshoe you might see a crosshair and then some dashed lines under it. Those are bullet drop compensators. What that means is that the first notch is for, I believe, 50 to 100 yards. Second notch is 200 yards. Third notch is 300 yards. I might have that mixed up. I think the second notch might start at 300. I'm not entirely sure. I'll put that in a little notation once I find out. But again, I kind of like this because I can zoom it all the way out and have a 1x picture. That means you're pretty much seeing this as if it was just a piece of glass in front of you. And I like to have it around here 2.5x, because to me that gives a good sight picture. Whether someone's 10 feet in front of me, usually you wouldn't even aim, you kind of just pick up and shoot at that point. Or if they're even a full house length away from me, which is what I'm pretty much showing you right now, I know I'm probably going to hit them for that. Again, this is more of a competition based scope, not really a Warzone type of scope like some people might think, but it'll work for your needs. You can see it gets really bright here, and this is one magnification. You barely tell it's illuminated compared to 0. I think 1 might be night vision compatible. I'm not entirely sure. Some of these types of scopes that are illuminated do have night vision capabilities. I don't have night vision, so it doesn't make any difference to me. I'll show you the actual scope. So you see here, Strike Eagle 1:6 by 24. Here's the dial. The dial's pretty smooth, a little loose compared to my 2.5 to 10. But that's pretty good because, like I said, it's a competition-based scope. You really need to be able to make fast changes. It is, again, second focal plane. What I really like about this is the cap turret. So these don't, usually on a scope, you could use these, and as you click, you're actually moving the reticle up and down within the tube, meaning you're changing your point of impact. So some scopes that are more distance oriented have knobs, turrets that look like this, and they change it like this. You actually change it from the outside. I like that this has a cap turret, so I can make my 0. I could put the cap over it, and I don't have to worry about the 0 changing if it's moving around in a car or whatnot. And Vortex did really cool with this is they have a little battery compartment in there. Again, I will be going over all these scopes in more detail at some point. This is just kind of an overview of the different types of scopes you might see if you're looking for them. Again, that's just a basic overview of each of these scopes. Like I said, I don't have every scope to show you. The most common ones you're going to find at any sporting store is going to be a standard crosshair. That's a variable power optic. Sometimes you'll see crosshairs that are a fixed power optic, and a lot of times you'll start to see red dots. They're really getting big because it's just a point and shoot. There's really no changes, it's not heavy. You pick it up, you put your dot on the target, and you're good to go. I do have one other scope. It's sitting right here, but my phone is about to die, and that's what I'm using as a viewfinder. I don't know if you can see that. It's not letting me get good view of the scope. It is a first focal plane scope. What I'm going to do for you is I'm going to put a couple videos of the different types of scopes that there are, so you see them in action. You see people that actually have good equipment to look through them. I'm going to put up an explanation of the difference between first and second focal plane, and I'll show a couple different reviews, not from me, from other people. You'll see my reviews on a lot of these later on, and hopefully they turn out well for all of you, but that's the best I can do at this moment. Sorry. Well, that's it for this video, everybody. I hope you enjoyed it. Again, I'm going to go into more in-depth videos on each of these scopes. If you liked the video, give it a like. If you disliked the video, give it a dislike. If you did dislike it, that's okay. But please let me know in comments why, so I can make this channel better for both you and me. If you have any comments, questions, concerns, ideas, anything, please leave them in the comments. I always try to write back to people, especially if you're giving me ideas or you want to collaborate with me. I always enjoy that. So I hope everyone has a great weekend. I hope you had a great week. I hope your next week is great, and I'll see you later.